This next lesson is on factoring polynomials. And if you're thinking, how can we factor a polynomial? Let me remind you that polynomials, they're just like numbers. Okay, and just as we can find two factors for 14, say, 2 times 7, we can find two factors for x squared minus 6x minus 16. In fact, there'll be two binomial factors. And I'm going to tell you right now for this one, they are x plus 2 times x minus 8. In a previous lesson, you learned how to do the FOIL method, how to go from x plus 2 times x minus 8 up to this quadratic trinomial. Well, now we're going to learn how to go backwards. We're going to learn how to factor x squared minus 6x minus 16 into its two factors, its two binomial factors, x plus 2 times x minus 8. Okay? So let's look at how to do that. Like I said, this is really the reverse of the FOIL. If FOIL was going in one direction, this is really going backwards. Okay? So you remember that the FOIL, Casey, starts out with two sets of parentheses for our two binomial factors. We usually start off with what as the first term in each of those binomial factors? What's usually the first term there?
X.
X, right? Because it's that x times x that's going to get us our x squared. For the second term, we want to think about factors of 16 because these last terms are going to multiply together to make 16. What numbers multiply together to make 16?
1 and 16.
1 times 16.
2 and 8.
2 times 8, right?
And 4 and 4.
And 4 times 4. Now, to figure out which number goes in these blanks, which pair, we want to think about which pair will either add together or subtract to make 6. So which one of these pairs will add together or subtract to make 6?
2 and 8. 2
and 8. And now the trickiest part really is deciding what goes in between the two terms in each binomial. Is it a plus or minus here? And is it a plus or minus there? Casey, what do you think?
It's plus for 2 and minus for 8.
Now how'd you get that?
Because positive 2 and negative 8, when you multiply them, make negative 16.
That's right.
And when you add them together, it makes negative 6.
Right. This 2x and negative 8x will make negative 6x, but the positive 2 times negative 8 will make the negative 16. So you really need a good knowledge of FOIL to kind of do it in reverse. In our second problem, we're going to see something new. Sometimes before you get into the reverse of the FOIL, you have to factor something out of the polynomial. Okay? And Casey, I'm going to give you a shortcut to do that. What you want to do, you want to look at the greatest common factor of the coefficients. Okay? So 2, 12, and 16. What's the biggest number that goes into 2, 12, and 16?
2.
2. And then with your variables, you want to take the smallest exponent for each variable. I have x to the third, x squared, and x to the first. The smallest is?
X to the first.
Right, just x. So we're pulling out a 2x. 2x times what makes 2x to the third?
X squared.
X squared. 2x times what makes 12x squared?
6x.
That's right. And 2x times what makes 16x?
8.
8. So, here we're left with another quadratic trinomial, and we just learned how to factor that. We're going to do that on the next card. But I want to show you that this polynomial is more like the number 30, where, say, we pull out a 2 first and see that that's 2 times 15, and then we still have to factor 15. So we still have to factor this factor. But the 2x is an important factor, and we're going to leave it there. So we see as we look at our last card, this is what we've done so far. We have 2x to the third minus 12x squared plus 16x. We pulled out a 2x, the greatest common factor of these terms, and we're left with this quadratic trinomial that we just learned to factor using the reverse of the FOIL. So, what do you think should go in these blanks? We've got to look at factors of 8. What numbers might go in? What numbers multiply together to make 8?
1 and 8.
1 and 8.
And 2 and 4.
And 2 and 4. So, considering which one of these will either add together to make 6 or subtract together to make 6, which one should we put in these blanks?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. And now, again, really the trickiest part of this is figuring out whether it should be a plus or minus here and whether it should be a plus or minus here. So what do you think, Casey?
They should both be negative.
They should both be negative. That's right. Now, how come?
Because negative 2 times negative 4 equals positive 8.
Right.
And negative 2 plus negative 4 equals negative 6.
Right, negative 2x and negative 4x will make negative 6x. So this one is factored. It's 2x times x minus 2 times x minus 4. And Casey, that's really our lesson on factoring polynomials. You really have to have a good knowledge of the FOIL to do the reverse of the FOIL on a quadratic trinomial like this. But first, always remember that sometimes you need to factor out a common factor out of your terms in your original polynomial. So that wraps it up. And let's give everybody at home a chance to work on their own problems so that they can get ahead. Good job, man.